Hello, my name is Lily Hawkins, and today I will be presenting my slideshow, Exploring Jumanji and Where the Wild Things Are as Fantasy Picture Books. The first topic we'll be discussing is world building. World building the Jumanji book. So, the author Van Allsburg's fantasy world is physical and real. So, anything that happens with the board, it comes to life, and these children have to actually experience it. Um, the board game releases the reality of the jungle in these children's living room. The book starts in a plain house with two siblings. They are bored and find a board game to play. The author uses illustrated work to demonstrate how these children are put into an extraordinary situation when the elements of the game become real. So, using examples from the book, we have them playing the game at first. And the first thing that happens is this lion appears behind them. And then in further images or pictures, I guess, the lion is pictured around their house under their bed and stuff. And they have to actually deal with it. Two unique rules that have to do with this fantasy world or the board game is one, the effects of the game are real, so it's not it's not their imagination. They can't just turn it off whenever they want. And two, the only way to stop the madness is to finish the game. So it states on like the first page or the second page of the book, it says that the only way to finish the game and to stop all the madness is to play out the whole game till its end. And then going back to the first one with the effects of the game are real, not only are the things coming alive and being real, but they're messing up like the house. And on the first book, the mom tells the kids, do not mess up my house. I have guests later. And so that's also like a situation they have to deal with. So world building and where the wild things are. Syntax Fantasy World is internal and imaginative. So in contrast to Jumanji, this one is this fantasy world is inside of Max's mind, and it's imaginary, and it's within his psyche, pretty much. The world is created in reflection of the main character Max's psyche and how he manages his own emotions. The book utilizes a tantrum to, let's say, voyage Max into it. So, for example, you can see how after he got sent to his room for bad behavior, he's in his room, and then the next page, instantly it starts to turn into kind of like a foresty area. So that's how the book transitions from just being the book into his psyche. Okay, sorry. And then the two unique aspects of the book are that the island of the fantasy world is that the island is governed by Max's emotional state. So depending on how he feels and how he wants to act is how the world comes about. Max is allowed to leave whenever he likes to because it's part of his imaginary world. He can turn it off whenever he wants. Let's see. Fantasy elements and transformation in Jumanji. So two fantasy elements in this book is that the first one is the game board itself because it's able to physically manifest elements like animals and weather inside of the house. The second one is the literary blur between the game elements and real life. So like when it's raining inside, it's blurring reality with kind of imagination, but again, it's still like real life things. And you also see that in the book when the snake takes the same pattern as the household decorations, if I can find that page. Yeah, so the snake comes alive and it takes the same colors, patterns as the chair. So yeah, there's the blur between reality and that. Shaping the characters in Jumanji, Judy and Peter are forced to work together to overcome challenges and face dangerous scenarios. And this fantasy world imposes adult-like responsibility onto the children. So basically, for example, the children are told that they have to keep the house clean and just play, something like that. And then the children, this comes alive and they have to realize, oh my gosh, they could have just waited for their parents to get home and been like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what to do, help us, blah, blah, blah. But no, they decided to be really mature about the situation for children and decide that they're going to play out the whole game and figure it all out themselves. And I have it written here, Jumanji could represent children having to grow up too fast. Kind of just like, that could also be reading too much into it, but because the children don't have to, like, they shouldn't have to deal with this, but they are. So that's dealing with, but it's also the consequences of their actions. So one of the rules of the game says that if you play the game, you can't stop, and so they're filling out that responsibility by finishing the game. So there's that. Fantasy elements and transformations, where the wild things are. So the two unique fantasy elements, one is Max's room. Max's room transforms into not only an ocean with a boat, but also an island. Um, the second one is the wild things themselves. So on the island, the wild things are monster-like creatures that are kind of like hybrid with animals, but you can't. They're not like identifiable creatures. So you can't be like, this one's a pig, this one's a cow. It's like just monsters. But they speak and act like humans with moral obligations. So if I can find the page, they announce him king, which is not really an animal thing. That I guess animals do that in a sense, but not in the same way that they are doing it. And I don't know where else it is, but I do know that they hold court in like the story. Next is shaping characters and where the wild things are. So Max's adventures through his imagination helped him manage and regulate his emotions, specifically anger, because he was able to safely play and act out how he was feeling and wanting to rule over the animals. He does eventually end up homesick and is like, and he decides, well, like being a super crazy wild ruler is fun, but I miss my mom and I miss eating my own warm food, so I'm gonna go do that. So he discovers that being at home with a warm meal and unconditional love of his mother is better than being a wild leader. And so he really gets to channel and express his emotions and manages anger, which is really good to show like a child reading this book is going to be able, oh, I feel like angry all the time too. And it's like, oh, I'm going to also imagine blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to be normal. Hero's journey in Jumanji. Judy and Peter undergo a type of journey, although they are in their house because they adapt to the board challenges to escape the game. And so this is kind of like an adventure journey type situation. They undergo a trial of finishing the game where each role releases lifelike danger into their house. They must survive. They must survive and they must go to the end of the game. In the end, they gain respect for the rules of the game and have proven their heightened maturity level. So I have the rules bolded because not only do they respect the rules of the game, but they're learning how to respect rules in general, and that things with like chaos that's unmanaged and there's no rules, it's just going to become worse. So they respect rules. Hero's journey and where the wild things are. Max is sent to his room for misbehaving, which triggers Max's imagination to send him on a journey or adventure. He's faced with challenges like stopping the wild things from eating him and instead becoming their leader. When he decides to return home, he has gained a better sense of his emotions and how to manage them. He also gains respect for authority. I feel like that one's pretty good to say because he's leading these monsters around for so long and he's like, wow, this is like tiring. I feel kind of homesick. Like I kind of just want to be cared for. And so he goes back and he feels bad for misbehaving and he just wants to eat food. So he respects authority. The illustrations in Jumanji are detailed and realistic. So here's one of my favorite ones. They're detailed and realistic, penciled images, kind of, because the color scheme is just black, gray, and white. I believe the art choices are good for the book. However, I would have drawn it. I would have chose to do it the same way, except having like all the monkeys and the animals and the weather and just the board in general be colorful in the black and white. I feel like that could have been really good imagery and enhance the idea of the fantasy world and its properties. The illustrations for the world, where the wild things are, it's bold lines with soft, earthy tones, and I'm pretty sure it's watercolor. I did fact check that, but I'm pretty sure he used watercolor. So I think that they're perfect. I love the expression. Oh yeah, I love the expressions in Max's faces and where the wild things are. So like here, you can tell that he's tired, and here you can tell that he's like, "Ooh, I'm the leader." Da da da. Also, the wild things are always looking at him, and I think it's also because a sense of danger of like, oh, like they want to eat him. And here, when he goes back, when he goes back home, he's over it. Like he's like, okay, I rolled. I want to go home now. It's kind of how I picture that. So I really like that. The conclusion for Jumanji, power of imagination, allows children to explore new emotions and creativity while gaining emotional skills. Chaos versus control. Specifically in the book, it emphasizes that you need to respect the rules of the game, or chaos can be overwhelming and destructive. Responsibility and consequences. This fantasy world amplifies that actions have consequences. So they chose to start the game, they had to finish it with the rules. The conclusion for Where the Wild Things Are, power of imagination allows children to explore new emotions, creativity. I think I copied and pasted it. That's the same thing. Chaos and control for this book specifically emphasizes that in order to live, you must have balance between being wild and following the rules of life and authority. So, because what I think at the end of the book, although he takes off his wolf suit, I would like to think that he's going to go back to the wolf suit and be wild again because that's how children are. But I feel like as the more times he does that, he's going to learn how to balance. Oh, I'm going to be wild and silly right now, but eventually I have to come back and be normal. And then childhood emotions. Max's adventure demonstrates that independence is fun, but emotional maturity and respect is also important. So, although he wants to go be fun and wild, he has to understand that he needs to be mature and have respect within that. And that's going to be the end of my presentation. I really enjoyed reading these books. We've focused on them all, the whole class, and I've analyzed them so much, and I feel like it's really helping with it's heightening my love for children's literature, and it's helping me finish the assignments and stuff. So I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to read these books and analyze them so deeply. Thank you.